Hello and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of Hollywood and foreign cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Tomás Ferreira, Leonardo Miranda,
Hey there, happy to be here.
very good, and Miguel Aido.
Hi there, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, yes. Three filmmakers in informal dialogue with a film review each episode. As part of our feast featuring The Walking Dead, reviews in both English and Portuguese will be available for different listeners. Today's episode will be in English and we'll be having a go at Lucio Fulci's The Beyond.
His name is not Lucio Fulci, but that sounds good.
Oh, what's his name?
It's Lucio Fulci.
Today's episode will be in English and we'll be having a go at Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. Portuguese speakers enhance the Portuguese labeled content section. Now sit back and hope you enjoy. The Beyond. Beyond bad. Beyond your wildest dreams, fucking bad.
You are beyond wrong about Beyond. But
You are both right.
I think I was watching it and I knew. I was like, they're probably not gonna like this very much, even though I was loving it.
Ooh.
But because no, the things that are like bad that you can point to, I'll probably agree and I'll say, yeah, you're correct. They're not the shortcomings are evident, but I like them. I like the things that make the film what it is, and I think it works solely in its attempts at making something very strange and unique and hellish and funny.
But wait a minute. What exactly, this is the question, what exactly, specifically, are those things that you think that you're describing that we wouldn't like? Just so I get it clear.
Probably, I would say the narrative, like the plot, the way the plot develops, it's very incoherent in certain ways, I would say.
Yes.
And
That
it
would
doesn't,
be for me
yeah.
a big one.
And one of the things is that it seems like it doesn't have a second act. It's just a first act all the way, and then something happens at the end.
I think it's very, yeah, it's narratively incompetent. But I don't think the
Yes,
film is
very
trying.
much.
But that's exactly why it works for me, because the
Oh, yeah?
film is it's like a nightmare. It's like watching a nightmare that you're having, and it's being put on screen. And nightmares, they don't make sense.
Oh, well, fair enough, yeah.
And that's what I like. It's like I was watching, I was thinking, this is like the nightmare sequences from Nightmare on Elm Street extended to a full film. And even more than that, because it's even more incoherent than the nightmare sequences on Nightmare on Elm Street. And I love those films. So, of course, I love this. Even though I get it. It can be a little too much, a little over the top as well, a little tiring. But I love it. All of it. And that's my case.
And that's my case. I have it closed.
And now, Tomás, you answer.
Well, I can. That's an interesting take, and I surely can see it from that slant of things. Makes a lot more sense when you put it in those terms. Yeah, it could be seen as this incoherent nightmare where this just sequence of events is happening and you're taken by it. But as per my first impressions, what I really like about the film, and it's common with, for example, Suspiria, which is the giallo, to me, is the other giallo I've seen, and really the one by excellence and well made. I like the over the topness of the horror. I like how fake the blood, the puppetry of it all is, and you can see through it. But at the same time, you have this hyper realism about how the scares, the screams, the high intensity death happens. I mean, you see a man jumping off a scaffolding, just slippery slope, goes down, and the moment he hits the floor, he starts spilling out blood, and you have a quick zoom into his face, he screams, oh, and there's an elliptical cut to him in the living room, and everybody around him worried, oh, the eyes, they say, with the badly dubbed,
Oh yeah,
voice,
dubbing is
And
terrible.
that's the dubbing in this film is beyond amazing.
Is beyond amazing, right? But that's actually the thing that I like about Giallo is that the dubbing is so everything is so that's the good disjointment about Giallos
It
and
adds character.
Italian horror. It adds character, it adds specificity to this style of filmmaking because everything has, even at a technical level, a supernatural flavor to it. It feels disjointed. The good disjointed. The bad disjointed for me is the narrative. The narrative, all of it feels disjointed. The editing as a whole doesn't hold up in a has a unity. But for the good that it has, it's the orchestration of the quick pans, the zooms, the fast paced cutting, uh, the lighting itself really painting the whole depth of field, giving prominence to certain elements in the background, like the room 36, where the painter and kind of gatekeeper to hell lives, and then comes to die at the beginning of the film. It gives to the whole of it a very heightened reality. In actuality, one of my favorite sequences in this film is the opening. The opening was very promising. It reminded me of Joss Strom's The Wind, with its whole sepia tone and the fear of the outside, the man coming in and killing the guy.
A bit
When
of
the
The
horror does
Exorcist as
happen,
well, I thought.
and The Exorcist, yes, yeah. When the horror does happen, with just the first hit of the nail on his hand, I'm like, oh God, Jesus, I feel it, and then you feel the acid being poured into his face. Everything is so visceral and intense, and you rarely feel that with nowadays films where the horror is very gratuitous. You don't feel the texture of it, I think, and the irony of it is that everything is fake, and you see the fakery, but they are so committed to it. You see, there's a commitment that it really pulls you to what they're selling in terms of the pain, uh, and then it's the soundscape that is delicious, because not only the voiceover is over the top and doesn't really sync up with the voice, with the actual sources. This is the mouthing of the people, but also the every other source of sound in the film, like water running, a pair of scissors cutting, is heightened. You feel every little detail of the sound, and it just feels like the sound as it is produced. Well, the sound that is applied as a sound effect, it's like slowed down in comparison to how the source is producing the actual sound, naturally producing, so it feels disjointed. It doesn't feel like it's happening at the same time. So it has a very much a nightmarish film, and that's where I like it the best. And visually speaking, it has delicious moments, like for example when you have the director himself playing the plumber, who is the director, coming back to life in a bathtub and then killing the maid in the hotel. You become aware that he's using this kind of fisheye camera to portray his and hers point of view as they kind of fight together, and it's very oppressive and claustrophobic, and he kind of surprises you with those takes of mise-en-scène sometimes. But for me, the biggest problem with the film, aside from that, is really the narrative. I couldn't really connect with any character. There's no emotional depth. There's nothing. Sometimes really ludicrous things happen, like the little daughter coming into the morgue and finding her mother, lying there on the floor, like very stagey, ready to receive acid on my face. Like it's just ridiculous. Like the vase with acid is on the tip top of the shelf, and it's like, oh, ready to slip, and it does slip, and it's who put that up there? Who was the moron who did this? It's just ridiculous. Yeah. And and the scenes, you spend the whole scene with the character. For example, the whole problem with me is like you have the main character making connection with this blind woman who was the previous hostess of the hotel, the haunted hotel, really. and she's going to her house, and the only thing she says to her, "You need to leave the hotel. It's dangerous. Just trust my word. I'll reveal it later in the plot." And I'm like, what the fuck? And then you go away from that, and you have the morgue scene, and it's like it extends for so long, and it's like completely forgot. I just feel we are half an hour away from our main protagonist who was left behind, and you consistently have these kind of elliptical jumps that really don't help out the film. It's not like I don't feel the film kind of has as much of a potent atmosphere as Suspiria has, for example, where I'm really kind of it's over the top. The acting is bad as shit, but there's consistency and there's an atmosphere throughout that I don't feel as much in this film, despite the delicious moments of horror. Narratively speaking, you get away from characters in such a way that when you eventually come back to them again, I don't feel it anymore. Where were we with you right now? Because I'm suddenly I'm with the maid, suddenly I am with the plumber, suddenly I am with the doctor, and it's so many lines that I'm like, I don't fucking care anymore. Like I'm just because in each of those lines I'm just assisting. I'm just being presented with a sequence of horror events. It's just horror for the sake of, gore for the sake of gore, and there's no, I mean, so I'm just looking at people getting slashed over, and that can be fun visually, but at a certain point, I don't care anymore. So yeah,
Yeah,
Miguel, what's your take?
That's fair. That's fair.
Very, very interesting point. But I mean, I might say that I share a bit of both. I guess. I think.
The synthesis.
Yeah, I mean, I think my main problem was with the plot. As I said, I mean, it felt a bit like you have an exposition that goes on for a very long time, and you never really have the sort of major inciting incidents that propel the story somewhere different. It's always like we're being introduced to new characters that suddenly see some undead person coming alive and killing them, and it's always this set of of events, like for an hour maybe, and then towards the end you sort of get in a conclusion, but it's still a bit hazy in terms of how we got there and specifically what made us get there. So yeah, it was a story that felt a little loose. And I mean, I agree with Maj. I didn't feel that connected with the characters as well. Although, I mean, part of that is probably because of their acting. But at the same time, I mean, they made me laugh so much with their faces and
Oh yeah, definitely.
Some incredible facial expressions in this
yeah,
film.
Incredible facial expressions, definitely. For sure.
and the dubbing being so bad is just so blatantly bad. Like you can see it's not synchronized and
Yeah, definitely. But to me, that kind of those little bits are the kind of bad bits that work
yeah,
into the
yeah.
style. And
Those
that I
things
love
made
them,
me laugh, and
yeah, and you have fun with it. And strangely enough, the more you laugh at it, the more you're horrified by it at the same time, because it's so, like I said, supernatural. It's so strange looking.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean it's almost like the voices aren't from the actors playing
Oh yeah.
that are in the
Yeah.
scenes, because it almost seems like they're so much worse.
A lot of them probably are Italian.
But I mean, they're still speaking in English.
I don't know if they. I don't know if all of them are, but even if they are if they are Italian people talking in English, they'd
yeah,
probably
maybe.
be dubbed by an English person. Then,
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, they could still have chosen actors for the voices that are actually actors, because it seems like amateur hour.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we have these bad actors. Let's just cast some, other group of bad actors as well to dub them.
Yeah, to do it justice, of course.
To do it justice, yeah.
But anyway, in terms of the effects and the gore, I mean, I really liked it. I didn't really feel that fakeness, because I think it's part of this sort of low budget horror films, or of the horror genre that you would see in independent film festivals. That are devoted to this style. So it's a sort of fakeness that at the same time tries to be realistic and
within the context of the film. I think you just kind of accept it.
Yeah, you buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this the brain divide. You are aware of it, but you buy it at the same time.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. It's like when you see that suddenly that doesn't look like the actor; it looks like a wax
A dummy.
figure.
Yeah.
You're like, awesome, gore.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the guy being eaten by spiders.
Oh, that scene is awesome.
Oh, that scene, I was like, oh, don't, please don't go
Yeah.
to his face. Please don't go to his face. And it's a dummy.
So obviously fake, but at the same time, it's so,
Yeah.
disgusting.
And I'm like, oh, you want to go to the mouth,
No.
and don't go there.
And when the
Gross.
spider goes like inside the eye and it pulls behind the eye, it's so
And I'm constantly saying, like, out loud, what does this movie have against eyes? Like, Jesus Christ.
yeah.
I mean, and there's that scene where the guy is coming out of the bathtub, and when he's coming out of the bathtub, you only see his face, so you know you can see the makeup and everything, and it's really well done. Oh my god! I mean, and then he gets out of the bathroom, he's pushing the woman into the nail,
Yeah. Martha.
but then but then his body is completely normal, just this sort of makeup in the face where you can clearly see the circle of white. It's just that's it. That's how far they go.
But by the way, I think Tomás said that the plumber is the director. It's not the director.
No, I thought it was.
That's no. He's different. I think it's he's also
That's not
Fulci, but it's
Lucio
someone
Fulci.
else. But it's not Lucio Fulci. I think it's let me check.
Because I saw the cast and I saw his name and I associated with.
No, like
Plumber.
Lucio is there, but he's not the plumber. Not Joe the plumber, the greatest character ever made.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
No,
weird
it's-
when he goes down to the basement and he sees Martin. It's like a little bit of sexual tension between the
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
It's-
They
nothing
stare at
happens.
each
It's like
other.
never
for a
gets
while.
developed. It's a very long
It's great.
pair of close-ups, and it's like, what is going on here? It's like-
But that's not even the guy that makes the best faces. It's the guy. The guy that makes the best faces is the one at the end. I don't even know who he is as a
doctor?
character.
Which one?
The doctor. Yeah, the doctor.
Which doctor? The guy with the mustache or the
The
main
one that-
character, John?
Yeah, the one that has this with the woman in the end.
No,
Like
I
third
would
act.
say the best would be Emily for me.
No,
Emily.
okay.
I don't know. I
Emily
think
the
they all
black
make
woman.
great.
Emily's too much of a main character to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the secondary ones that come out and make faces suddenly.
Oh yeah, like the guy in the bookstore or the library
Yeah,
with that
that was
weird
hilarious.
smile.
It was hilarious,
It's
yes.
awesome.
Oh my god.
He has like perfect
Yeah.
teeth, super white. I don't know if it's his real teeth or just fake ones that they put for the sake of it.
He's just there. Crystal. He's feels like a secondary character in a Sergio Leone film that just is there, like the old man that is crazy and laughing and saying stupid, foolish shit, in a film. Like, for example, I mean, in a Italian spaghetti film, I think back to the old man in Once Upon a Time in the West. It's I think it's that scene, or is it The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Because we have a scene with, I think, Clint Eastwood and an old man talking about railroads, and he's just like, railroads, it's a really crazy world. And it's just that kind of background character who suddenly appears, and it's just silly. Same thing for the librarian. It's just very weird. And the book thing. The book comes in and comes around, and it's not really relevant,
Ion.
is it? I mean,
It's like
kind of a plot device.
it's a
used
plot
for
device
remembering.
for the sake of hell.
Give some
opening of
wanted
the gates.
consistency.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't say before, but I mean, one of the main things that seems so contrasting in a sense is it's that first scene seems extremely well developed directing wise. I mean, it has very
yes.
particular style, even
Yes.
image wise. And then you move on from that, and you get to that scene, the guy falling from the scaffolding. It's so like a massive zoom that you hadn't had in the first scene.
Yeah.
It's so different. It almost seems like a
Disjointed,
different
yeah.
director came in and took over. And for me, it was a bit disappointing because I was expecting more of the same from that first scene,
Yes.
and things just suddenly went all bright and sunny, and the guy falling.
Yeah, that was the same feeling I had.
I don't know. I like that the contrast the film has between like these moments of more like horrifying intensity, and then suddenly followed by a moment where there's a brightness and a smoothness to it, and then gradually it
Mm.
goes back to an uneasiness. There's like the moment where Joe the plumber is in the basement and he's getting his face eaten or whatever, getting his face destroyed by the devil, the zombie devils. And then it cuts to a very blue shot of a highway where
Mm.
Liza is driving.
Yeah.
It's like the contrast between those two images is very interesting because suddenly it seems, oh, it's a moment of relief where we're going away from the intensity of what we just saw. And then suddenly in the middle of the fucking highway is like a woman standing. She's wearing a blue dress as well. So like there's these developments of like little things that suddenly you think the movie is gonna take a break or is going to just, I don't know, like give you a
Develop
moment
from
of,
there.
yeah, develop from there. But no, it's just like you go from moment to moment and everything is just its own, like it has its own logic and its own interests. There's barely any connection between moments sometimes, and I think that's very
Yes.
interesting and very cool.
A very, you know,
I do agree that that cut to the highways was interesting. Yeah,
Yeah, and there's
thought
other
so too.
like for example when Liza and Emily are in the, is it the hotel, and there's like a zoom on Liza's face, and then you see the images of Emily running away over and over again,
Ah, yeah.
oh, I like that. Yes, yes,
sometimes
yes.
without the dog. And
Yeah.
then it zooms again on Liza's face, and she opens her eyes, and then it cuts to like a shot of a sunset, like the camera is panning to the left, and it's like suddenly very like soothing and calm. For it's so strange, such a strange way of dealing that. And then you go to like a porch, and it's like behind the porch there's the sunset, and so it's like a backlight kind of thing. And then she goes inside again, and she finds, I think she goes, I don't even know. Like the film moves in such strange ways. She goes and sees the clothes of someone inside the closet.
Mm, yeah.
Like the film moves in a way that is so peculiar.
And it's such a sort of a slow mechanical movement. You can clearly tell that someone's there pushing the door.
Yeah, exactly.
And a glaring example of a transition that is stupid to me, for example, is when you have the daughter of Joe the plumber coming into the morgue, facing the blood of her mother, who is kind of going towards her. This little, you know, a tsunami of blood and acid, and then she feels like a 40-year-old in the clothes of a 15-year-old. It has a very old face, and then she suddenly opens this door and a dead body falls over like, oh, and she screams, and then there's a transition to the most stupid transition I've ever seen in my life, like from this stupid scream, ah, the body falling down, you transition to the main character, um, Liz, saying, "Oh, I used to live in New York." What the fuck? And we are in a cafe. You are in a cafe. And she's like, I used to live in New York, and jazz musicians are in the background, and they're all smooth. And so, what you used to do? Oh, I used to live in New York,
But
and
the
I'm
way
like,
it's
"Well,
framed, the way it's framed, it's so uncomfortable. She's like right to the left of the image, like it's so uncomfortable. I love that because again, it's what I was saying. Like you move from a scene that is very intense with a terrible transition with a freeze frame,
terrible
and then
transition."
you go to a scene that seemingly is like calmer, but at the same time there's immediately an uneasiness because she's framed in a very uncomfortable way, and then you cut to John and he's also framed in a very uncomfortable way, right to the side of the
Yeah.
image. I think that's interesting how the film builds an uneasiness purely through, sometimes just through that, through framing,
Hmm.
and other times very blatantly through the gore, and that's cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a subtle film, of course. It's very over the top.
I mean that line with the New York, it's much funnier than that, because she says something so stupid afterwards, like the fact that she lived in New York suddenly gave her knowledge about something that's happening. I don't remember. I have to try to rewatch the
I'm
scene.
gonna put it back. Yeah, she mentions New York a couple times actually, which is a classic person who lived in New York thing. Like a stereotype that people who live in New York are always talking about the fact that they used to live in New York. And she's like, "Oh, I used to live in New York, Emily. You're not gonna make me believe in ghosts."
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that one is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so what exactly about New York gave you that
Yeah,
specific?
exactly.
Ooh, cultural city, you know, too cool for school.
Honey, I lived in New York, okay? Ghosts, no.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that this film reminds me more of, because I was thinking of other films that have similar ideas, I guess. Like I was thinking, this is more closer to House than it is to
Mm.
The Shining in terms of what it is doing with a place
To
and
House?
House the film, the Obayashi film.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
In
Don't
terms
know
of
that.
its
Well, you know,
formal
kind
attempts, it's much
yeah.
more, it's like almost overwhelming you with formal trickery and aesthetic trickery to build its ideas and to build the mood.
I mean, House is so overwhelmingly built around the aesthetic and formal ideas that that's all there is, and I'm on it. While here they're legitimately, I don't know. I believe they legitimately are actually trying to have some kind of a story going on, but they
I don't
can't.
think so.
You don't think so?
No, not
Oh,
at all. I think this
Ooh.
is a visual, just purely visual thing
purely visual thing.
that is being done. Like
It's
obviously you
that
have
thing
to have a
about trying to uncover his intentions, original intentions. What is amateur? What is actually thought
yeah,
in?
and as always, my answer is like I don't care that much.
Mhm.
Like if his intentions were to tell a good story, he failed, but he made a good film regardless. For me,
Mhm.
but I don't think he was trying to tell a good story here necessarily. He was just like putting the bare minimum of
Yeah, the same way I think, for example, Kurt Russell wasn't trying to tell a good story when he did The Lair of the White Worm with Hugh Grant in a horror film.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah, me.
It's a very stupid horror film about a vampire, priestess who is trying to revive a huge white worm that is a metaphor for phallus. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous horror film, and I thought it was a comedy, and Ken then said, "Yeah, it's a comedy." When I went and checked it, so yeah, it's stupid to the very end. So yeah, some films are just like that.
But that just feels like he failed, and then he's like, it's a comedy, sure.
Was it? I don't know. I
I don't know.
mean,
No, from what you said, it seems like it was
no.
that
He
way.
was already. It was a situation where I was seeing the actress in an interview for the film, and she was explaining how Ken came up to her. Ken Russell is the director of The Devils. I don't know if you've seen
Hmm.
the film,
I've never
but
seen it. I know him. Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool. I don't like that film, but he went up to her and he explained it. He gave her the script. She was surprised by it. I mean, Ken, is this for real? Like, and he said it's a comedy, of course, because she asked, "Is
All
this a
right.
comedy?" Of course it is, because it's so silly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
That's
some
cool.
films may have that vibe.
And what's with the guy at the end constantly shooting the
He's
zombies
so
in the
stupid.
arm instead of
Are
the
you
head?
serious right
Yeah.
now? Thank God you've noticed that too, because
I think
it's
everybody does. It's so obvious.
at times I'm like, finally, you got it. Shoot to the head, you moron. And then he keeps on shooting to the fucking, torso. It's
It's like
ridiculous.
he's right next to the zombie, and he's like shoots down and points to the belly. And I also love the fact that he runs out of bullets, and then 10 seconds later, he's already shooting again. He didn't,
Oh, yes, yes.
and he shoots for so long. Like it's so obviously fake in terms of
Uh-huh.
what it's trying to do.
Yeah, but that part is funny because it just doesn't care.
Yes. Because at first he's like, you see his thought process, okay, where to shoot, and then I feel like he kind of learns it, yeah, to the head, moron, and he
No.
just unlearns that. He just starts shooting at the belly and crap.
No, he shoots at
And
the
he looks,
belly, then he shoots at the arm, and then he runs out of bullets when he's pointing to the head. And so he's like,
yeah.
damn it. You had 2 bullets, man.
And the thing is, he looks like someone that knows his shit, and he looks so serious doing it,
Does
and I'm
he?
like, okay. I know. I'm looking at him,
He
and
looks
I
like a
believe him,
moron.
and then he doesn't. It's like he
He's the
doesn't like a
guy.
moron.
His face
Yeah.
is perfect. He always looks confused and stupid. Great.
It's enough. I'm not gonna believe these things with zombies. I'm a man of science. I've risen. Yeah. I mean that the house just crumbled down and it's like fucking tsunami and you come outside. I'm not gonna believe this. I'm a doctor, science. Yeah, sure.
Also, I love the character, the guy Arthur. He's like always soaking wet. Like his head is
Yeah.
always wet.
Yes.
No one says anything. They're just like, okay.
He's inherently weird. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And the way she says it. Oh, they came with the house. What?
What? I never heard of them.
I never heard of them. Like,
I mean, I think that if we are in tune with the director's intentions, even if a film is has its shortcomings, I think we can appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, even a film like this, it has so much cool stuff that you can kind of forgive. I think that's kind of something we've seen in a lot of films we reviewed. Probably the worst one would be some film where we feel we don't get to the intentions of the director, or it just seems like he half-assed it or something.
Yeah. I can't say that of this. This was not half-assed.
Yeah, that's
It's
it.
just, it has its limitations. If you approach it a certain way, like in a more traditional way, you're not gonna appreciate it very much.
and it depends on your mood for it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly,
Because
too.
I don't think I was in the mood. I think I was expecting, because of that opening scene, I was expecting something more consistent. So I think if I saw it again, I would be mad. I think if I saw it again, I would be mad at it. I totally understand your point of view, but I think 1 hour and a half felt like 3 hours of my life.
Oh wow!
You know,
For me,
like,
it's just breezed by. It was
I was dying throughout the film.
Yeah, but not every film has got to be for you. Like you can appreciate what it's trying to do and still say, "But I don't like it.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
for me."
I totally.
That's fair.
Now I see from what extent you've seen it, I can totally understand it and appreciate it, but it doesn't hit home.
Kind of felt like Lucio was doing an homage to The Exorcist, but they thought, no, this is way too similar. Let's just take a 180-degree turn here.
Yeah.
Let's just make it incomprehensible.
Have the guy fall off the scaffolding immediately.
Yeah.
That's all for today. If you'd like to reach out and suggest a film for the next episode, you can find us on the podcast official Instagram and Facebook pages. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. Thanks for listening and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye, cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.